someone know. Focus. Fantasy focus.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast, Wednesday edition. Daniel Dopp,
the stars of the show.
Stephania Bell. I mean, really the only two that you actually need in your life, if I'm being honest with myself. Stephania, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You know what? I kind of like this pairing for the fantasy podcast.
It doesn't feel too bad, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No. In case you guys are wondering, Prison Mike had a meeting with his parole officer that he could not get out of. Field Yates had an absentee
excuse.
His mom signed a note. They were going to the aquarium later today. And then Matthew Berry is DNP because he's old. So just like Tim Duncan.
Veteran rest day.
Veteran rest day.
They actually have a category for that now on the injury report.
Good.
So he can get a veteran rest day.
Load management.
Load management, exactly.
For sure.
So it's gonna be the two of us plus Keith and Kyle, and we got Jackson back there.
I'm impressed, quite frankly, that Keith showed up.
I am too.
Because we had a little wager.
After the Monday night football game that was 49ers and Browns, do we want to address this real quick with both of you in the room here? Just real fast?
I think Stephania does.
I wouldn't be surprised if she did.
Why ever would you say that, Keith? I'm adjusting my neon microphone.
Yeah, for sure.
So Keith and I were trying to think of what sort of wager to come up with. Friendly.
Yeah.
But, still have it be meaningful. And all I can say is that we're going to have to hold off. I want it to be a little bit of a surprise. So I'm not going to divulge what it is. And for Keith's like, we can just get lunch in the caf. I'm like, dude.
Nope.
Guess who thought his team wasn't going to win?
I was like, first of all, we can get lunch in the caf any day. And I love having lunch with Keith. But that doesn't feel like a punishment.
Sure.
For either of us.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's got to be something where there's some mockery involved.
Ooh.
And there will be.
I love it.
But it requires all of us to be in the room together.
Sure.
Like a day when we're all here so we can really fully appreciate it. So that will play out later.
Yeah, love to hear that. Thirsty Kyler are going to have to do that because we have a Monday Night Football matchup this week. We sure do. Which is going to be awesome.
Guys, cereal?
No, we're not going to do
Two boxes to find for a Monday night
Stop
game.
it. 2 boxes.
Life and Captain Crunch.
It's a big week around here.
Get out of here.
Kyle's living on the edge before he gets married.
He's
He's
one last fling, Stephania. You know how this goes.
2 boxes.
It's the equivalent of his bachelor party.
Oh, yeah. Getting wild.
I'm not going to put milk on my cereal. I'm going to put apple juice on it.
So
wow.
Good.
Let's not get it crazy, Stephania.
I love it. All right. Speaking of getting crazy, Stephania, we got a bunch of injury news to get into. So, Jackson, why don't we do this?
She's not a clone. She's your favorite gal. She's Stephania Bell.
Not a cone.
Well, I don't know.
Emphasis.
I got to say, I love Kit and Chip, but that's like the one thing that I take issue with.
That's why I love them the most.
Mm-hmm. Stephania, we got a couple of guys that we definitely want to talk about here. And let's start with someone that is a massive, massive update for players that have problems at running back. David Johnson is dealing with a back issue. What is it that we know about David Johnson?
What we know is that his back stiffened up on him during the course of the game. It's funny because somebody turned to me in the room where we watch games on Sundays. We're all there. And there's, of course, this week, wasn't it like 10 games on early? And then
and then 2
so
4
when you're
o'clock
trying
games.
to watch all these games at once, I can't keep my eyes on something. People tend to yell at me when they're like, hey, what happened to so-and-so? Or what's going on with so-and-so? And I got 3 like, hey, is David Johnson hurt? Is David Johnson hurt? And then I looked up and I saw him in the game. I'm like, why are you guys asking me this question? Well, I think he came out and in a few times and his back apparently stiffened up. They haven't offered any more of a specific diagnosis. The team has said they will monitor him this week, but it certainly could impact him. Even if he plays, the problem with these back issues is sometimes you feel pretty good, you get treatment during the week, you go into the game, and then it becomes a problem intermittently. I've ranked David Johnson where I normally would for now, and so I ranked him at 8th. But I increased my ranking on Chase Edmonds. I moved him up to 40 because I think that he will play a role this week and potentially more of one if David Johnson is truly limited.
Yeah. And it's too bad because David Johnson last week, especially with the way the Cardinals played, finally started to have a little bit more of that David Johnson that we had liked to see. 91 rushing yards in Week 5 against the Bengals. On pace for 77 receptions, 790 receiving yards. Still a little bit less than the superstar David Johnson that we had come to know and love in 2016 and 2017, but man, if he goes down, especially when these Cardinals just start playing well, it's going to be a blow to some fantasy rosters.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of one of these tricky ones for fantasy players where it's like he comes in, he's going to play, and you're just keeping your fingers crossed that it doesn't bother him. We'll see.
Because if he
It's still
plays, you
early
have
in
to
the-
roll him out there.
Right.
So,
Yeah, without question.
all right, moving on to Sammy Watkins, who unfortunately sunk one of my fantasy teams that I needed in a big Sunday night game.
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking, we haven't yet talked about my magnificent score over Field Yates.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll
Everything's
save that
about
for
Stephania
later.
today. Yep.
You know what? When you get a score like that, you are allowed to brag about it.
Field
I'll
talked
never
about it
do
quite a
again.
bit.
I know. I listened to that part,
Yeah.
and I turned off the podcast. I just wanted to hear him complain. Sammy Watkins, yes. Look, soft tissue injuries, not a stranger to them. Unfortunately, we know he's had issues in the past. A hamstring injury in the first quarter, so he was out of this game early, and that's why you were so hurt by it. The expectation was that he was going to be further evaluated on Monday. That's what the team indicated. Remember, practice reports for teams that are playing other than Thursday night don't come out until today. So we're not likely to learn much until later in the week. But I would not be surprised hamstring injuries, especially if it takes you out of the game and you don't come back and it's that significant, they often go more than 1 week.
Yeah. We'll talk more about Tyreek Hill a little bit later on in the show, but I'm just curious if you had a sense one way or the other, Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson, or, are you going to pop until you can't stop with Mr. Pringle over there? Do you have one that you like more than the rest?
Boy, that's so marginal. But
What?
okay.
Come on, this chair. I'm trying to make something here.
That's true. It is the chair. I know. I do like Pringle just because I like saying it. But Mecole Hardman.
Mecole Hardman.
My guy. I like the big play upside. And that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Speaking of big play upside, a guy, we could literally talk about the entire Giants roster, and we probably will a little bit later in the show, but
We will.
Evan Ingram
Actually,
dealing
talk
with
about
an
the entire
MCL
Giants
sprain.
roster. But at least all the skilled position players for the Giants, because they are in trouble. But one of the people they are in trouble because of is Evan Ingram, who Adam Schefter reported has a sprained MCL, medial collateral ligaments. The ligament reinforces the inside of the knee. It's tough. Guys, when you have an MCL sprain, it's just like any other sprain. There's a variety of manifestations depending on the severity of the injury. But anytime you have to plant cut to the inside, that stresses that ligament. It's hard to even run at full speed depending on the severity of the injury, because sometimes you just don't have full motion in your knee. So to turn around and play 4 days later off of a sprained MCL, highly unlikely. Apparently he was out yesterday running some routes. Now the Patriots and the Giants, not practicing this week. So they're just doing some light work, walkthroughs. Had a sleeve on that left leg. Jordan Ronan, who obviously covers the Giants for us, said he was out there running routes, and his quote was, "Didn't look great."
Eesh.
So it's not encouraging. Even Schefter said challenge for him to play. I agree. Also hearing weather is going to be pretty nasty up in New England. So if you're worried about things that could potentially stress that, slippery surface,
Not good.
not good.
Not
great,
good.
not
And here
great.
we are in week 6, where congratulations, Rhett Ellison may be in your fantasy lineup.
Stop it.
That is exciting. Are
Stop
you
it.
starting Rhett Ellison in any
No,
leagues
I'll
this
take
week?
Jeff Swaim over Rhett Ellison.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about him.
All right, deal.
But, look, Golden Tate could be the guy this week. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I love me some Golden Tate. Jalen Samuels, let's move on to him. Out with a knee injury, Stephania. What do we know about the backup Steelers running back?
Yeah, it came as a bit of a surprise. Arthroscopic surgery for Jalen on Monday. We're hearing that he's going to be out about a month. That's coming from Mike Tomlin. Love Pittsburgh. They're fairly straightforward about these things.
Yep.
So you already know that you would need to expect that Jalen Samuels will not be there. And James Conner's been a little bit banged up this year, and I think that Jalen Samuels has helped alleviate some of the workload for him. So now they will be minus Jalen Samuels.
Yeah. So you're looking for maybe a healthier workload from James Conner, or you could look at potentially Benny Snell. I'm going to go to my resident Pittsburgh expert, and Keith. And Keith, what can you tell me about Benny Snell that I need to know?
I would think in this situation, not enough to pick him up. Quite
Okay.
frankly, I think that the pass catcher is still going to be Connor. I don't think they would, that Benny Snell has not shown that he's a pass catching type of back.
Sure.
So I think Connor's workload is what increases here.
Okay.
So I'm not big on picking up Snell. Obviously, if you have Connor, as a handcuff, for the next couple of weeks at least, certainly. But with them being on a bye next week, it's a situation where Snell would be eating up a roster spot for a week as well. So
I'll say this: if you were rostering Jalen Samuels as the handcuff to James Conner, I would be comfortable dropping him and trying to figure out whether it's Snell or somebody else to be able to plug into that spot in your lineup. Hopefully on your bench, though.
Yeah, you can go back and get him later.
Yeah. So, Stephania, you are not going to be here tomorrow, so I'm just going to give you the floor. Why don't you give us a couple other injuries, some quick hitters that you just want to run through to make sure that all of our listeners and viewers are good to go with their injury information.
I wouldn't want to leave you stranded on Thursday morning, but as Matthew does.
Okay. All right.
Because the list is long, and normally on Thursday we run through the Thursday night game, but I think you can take your clues already from what's happening. So Giants in New England, we already mentioned that. Probably not going to be very nice weather conditions. Wayne Gallman already out. Let's go through the Giants side first, by the way. Wayne Gallman out with a concussion, not practicing. He's not going to play. Saquon Barkley, this is the one everybody's waiting to hear about. Is he or isn't he going to play? A lot of excitement last week when he was outside doing some light work, some running, not quite full speed, but some running and some change of direction things. Listed as limited Monday and Tuesday. Again, reminder, Giants not practicing, so these are projected work estimations.
Yep.
But again, Jordan Raanan, there was some back and forth, right? Because Pat Shurmur is like, well, could be that he's playing. Jordan reports later, unlikely to play. If you think about it, he's only 16 days post this high ankle injury.
Gosh.
And I've said all along that this is really about looking at the health of the player long term. And he can look really good doing all these things, but he hasn't had the ultimate test yet. And I'm just not sure that you want to have that in a game that could be sloppy against the Patriots of all teams. At 16 days post.
Yeah.
Think of this. If he were to not play in this game and you have another 10 days until your following game, that's 26 days, puts you close to 4 weeks. This injury sort of had a 4-week look to it once we heard that it was not as severe as originally projected to be. So I would think that everyone's going to be a lot more comfortable if Saquon comes back in week 7 versus week 6 because it matches closer to the 4-week window. Now, he has said he's not ruling himself out. He's going to get on the bus, but he also said he will trust the decision of the athletic trainers and the rest of the medical staff. Which,
I would,
good idea.
And I roster Saquon, so in a couple of leagues, I would love to be able to have him this week, but for the long-term fantasy impact, I would much rather see him take this week off and make sure that he's fully healthy so that there's not an aggravation, not a re-aggravation, mind you, an aggravation.
I'm so proud.
Later on in the season. Also, rain is likely tomorrow, up to 40-mile-per-hour winds for that game.
Right.
So if you want to talk about a sloppy playing
really
field.
tough on your ankle.
Oh, my gosh.
I know what you mean, though. The conditions are lousy.
It's just bad conditions,
Yes,
Stephania. Jeez.
I know. I'm just teasing. But and we already went with, we already talked about Evan Engram. So look at all those injuries for the Giants. Now, if you flip over to the opponent, the Patriots, they're not without their own injury concerns themselves. We've got Philip Dorsett. We already know hamstring, and they're calling him week to week. So he's out. Just make sure you know that. Rex Burkhead didn't play last week because of this foot injury. He was out of that game. Listed as limited. Again, Patriots, just like the Giants, not really practicing this week. But that's one where, you could go down to the wire before we find out. We'll probably have a better idea tomorrow morning. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in at questionable, and then they decide.
Whoa, who didn't shut their cell phone off before the show started?
Sitting in that chair really.
Wow, that's
really,
incredible.
Is Beth calling?
It was not Beth.
Nicely done.
It is not
Nicely
Beth.
done, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay. Where was I, Matthew?
I don't remember.
Patriots.
I wasn't listening.
Julian. So on brand for Matthew. Julian Edelman limited with the chest injury. Have you watched Julian Edelman?
I have.
Last couple games?
Yep.
It's phenomenal what he's doing because he is producing like crazy, just like you would expect. But he's hurting. I mean, he got up a few times and sort of grabbed his rib cage. You could see him laboring a little bit. He's not comfortable. He's far from being 100%, but he still plays, and that's all you need to know. He's going to play. Josh Gordon also on the injury report because of his knee. He was last week, too. I expect him to play, but I think you're not seeing the full top flight speed from Josh Gordon, and that might be a reason why.
Yeah, it seems like the both of these teams not being at 100% on Thursday Night Football.
Which really bodes well for a Thursday night game.
Going to be super fun from that standpoint. I'll tell you what is super fun, though. I wish Mike Clay was here because he'd love this. Analyzing numbers, poring over projections, spotting trends, all the things you do to set your fantasy lineup every week.
Well, all the things Mike Clay does.
Well, that's true. And then I just text Mike Clay, hey, can you analyze my lineup for me? But you know investors do the same thing for their portfolio every day. What does that mean? It means you might have the skills to trade. And TD Ameritrade has all the tools you need to take your investing knowledge to the next level. There's paper money, so you can practice trading risk-free. Data visualization tools like charting and heat mapping to help you spot trends in the market. And they'll even create an investing training plan that's unique to you and your needs, complete with exclusive videos, webcasts, and courses. To talk to TD Ameritrade, take your analytical skills to the next level from fantasy gridiron to the trading floor. Just visit tdameritrade.com/fantasy to learn more. That's tdameritrade.com/fantasy to get started. Member SIPC. All right, Stephania, let's break into some rankings here because obviously Wednesday, all of our rankings go up on ESPN.com, so make sure you go check those out. There's one here, though, that I am intrigued by because Chris Carson of the Seattle Supersonic Seahawks. I wish they were the Seattle Super Seahawks. How cool would that be? Wouldn't that be cool?
No.
Okay. Well,
my team's in the NFC West, so they're... No.
Okay, all right. Matthew has Chris Carson at 6, Field at 9, and you have Chris Carson at 18 going up against the Cleveland Browns. Stephania, what is it that has you down a little bit on Chris Carson?
Well, I was down a little bit on him. I don't think I realized I was this down relative to the others, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Unlike my DK Metcalf call last week when he scored a touchdown, but I don't love Chris Carson right now, and I can't totally put my finger on it, but I'll give you a couple things why. And some of it, when I look at the rankings, I honestly look at, would I play this one over this one when I'm ranking them? Not just totally what they expect to do, but if I'm setting my lineup, how comfortable am I feeling? I look at the matchups. I look at what they're doing. I look, obviously, injury concerns.
Yep.
And then I sit there and go through the exercise of if I had to pick between these two, where am I putting them? Especially, and in this, it's sort of a cluster, right? Once you get outside the top 10. Chris Carson, to me, has not been as productive of late. We know about the fumbles. I think Rashad Penny being back colored my feelings about it too. Rashad Penny, this was his first game back after missing 2 games with a hamstring injury. Carried the ball 6 times for 18 yards, 2 receptions for 31 yards. One was like a 30-yard reception. So you could see the value of Rashad Penny as a change of pace. I get it. He's not there to totally split the workload, but it does make a dent into Chris Carson's work. He only played 12 snaps. I get it. But it still takes away some of Chris Carson's work. And I just have this feeling that Seattle's going to go a little bit pass heavier against Cleveland because, I saw a team that could gash them both running and passing. And I do think Seattle might follow a similar formula. So I think you'll get some volume out of Chris Carson, but I don't necessarily see the long breakaway runs. And I think you'll see a lot of Russell Wilson in this game. Also, a couple stats. Seattle is the 6th pass-heaviest red zone offense in the NFL this season, ahead of the Chiefs. 6th pass-heaviest red zone offense. So they are not running the ball in the red zone. In fact, they haven't rushed for a touchdown since week 1.
Wow.
So when you're looking for a touchdown point, I feel like Mina Kimes would really enjoy that stat.
Yeah,
I think
so.
They're pass-heavy in the red zone. I think she has some sensitivity to that. Chris Carson caught 9 passes for 61 yards in his first 2 games this season. 6 catches for 44 yards in the 3 games since. So I think his pass volume has gone down. And all of this contributes to just a little bit lower fantasy production. And that's where I'm at.
Okay. I think that's...
slice me up for it.
Still, I'm not going to slice you up. Still, obviously, a running back that you are starting. So that is not a conversation. 15 carries in every game this season. Only him and Leonard Fournette have 100 yards over the last 2 games. But you are right. I mean, not getting a ton of help. When you look at that team and you're trying to figure out which way are they going to go. Keith, actually, I'm going to throw this to you, Keith, because as a Browns fan, where is it that you feel like the Browns can be beat the best? Is it on the ground or through the air?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think it really depends on your offense, but right now, there's a little bit too much being made about their being without Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward. The backups actually have played just fine on the whole, but I've been disappointed with the defensive front because I thought it would be a dominant front across the board.
I think we all did.
You know, I mean, no doubt that Myles Garrett has been great, but I expected more from Olivier Vernon. I think that in the middle, Richardson has been good, you know, but I just expected a little bit more. I thought they would be a dominant front, and then the rest of the defense would just benefit from that.
Sure.
The linebacker unit is thin. There's no question that Schobert is amazing. He's all over the field at all times. Mack Wilson is a rookie, and he is talented, but he's not Christian Kirksey, at least not yet.
I think, to be fair, like the passing game for the 49ers is not their strength, especially like downfield passing. But the Seahawks, they got a couple guys who can motor, you know, in DK Metcalf, and, you know, Tyler Lockett is so versatile in terms of whether he's playing out the slot or playing on the perimeter. I think that it is going to present a tougher challenge for their secondary.
I expect that they're going to try to play that game against the Seahawks similar to the way they played it against the Rams, where they'll try to keep the receivers in front of them.
Yeah.
And that was their goal against the Rams. Right. Don't get beat over the top. So they were willing to give them the 8-yard completion. Now the key is, of course, tackling. You got to be able to tackle. If you're gonna give up 70% completion rate, which Russell Wilson is as accurate as they come, he's going to complete his passes. You got to make sure you get him on the ground. So that's going to be definitely a challenge, not to get beat deep by Lockett, because let's face it, every game, no matter what, everybody knows it's coming, and somehow he still gets you every game.
Should be frozen in immortality. Did you guys see the
I love the Michael Jackson. Oh man, that was perfect.
Might be one of my favorite things ever with the toes. You know, the so smooth criminal. It was so good, and I just looking at that, I was like, that's unbelievable. His body control making that catch was unreal. I would have given up.
I'm with you. Rather than frozen in immortality, I think frozen in carbonite.
Yeah, whatever. You know what?
You know what I mean? You get it?
No.
It's a Star Wars reference. Come on, frozen.
Certainly more practical to go that route.
Right? Exactly.
I said frozen in immortality. It was stupid anyway. It needed to be. It needed to be. It needed to be taken out. You had every right to call me out on that.
Listen, carbonite's nothing to mess with either. All right, let's move on. And you actually, so most of our rankers have this switched here. So we're going to talk about Chargers running backs here, but Melvin Gordon, Stephania Bell, you have as running back 12 heading into week 6. Matthew has him at 23. Field Yates have him at 19. You obviously have
Melvin Gordon.
Why do you not?
Passion.
Yeah, why are they stupid idiots and you're so smart?
I believe Anthony Lynn tells the truth. I believe Anthony Lynn when he says that Melvin Gordon is their number one guy. I believe him when he says that Melvin Gordon is going to come back and be their number one back. And I also believed him when he said that they were not going to use him as much in his first game till they were sure that he could handle the load. I think they saw what they saw. Wasn't sure he was a little bit rusty. I was expecting that. So did I care that he didn't put up huge numbers? No, because I probably, you know, if you started, I had to start him in one league where I had him and held on to him. It wasn't great, but I think better things are to come. And I think this is the week that starts to happen. Yes, he got outsnapped by Austin Eckler 41-31 in this first start of the year, but he is going to see more work. And I think that the performance is going to come. You know, I think there's the one stat that Kyle gave us that I really like, because I think it's reflective of how they game planned for him, how the Chargers game planned to use him, was that he got 7 of the Chargers running back touches on first and second down in the first quarter. He was featured early, and then they laid off.
Yep.
And I think that he's just going to get more volume, more work. He'll have a full week of practice with them again. Austin Eckler's not going away, and I'm not suggesting that he is. And I think what we saw was how they used Austin Eckler was as a pass catcher. So there's tons of value for him. I think you potentially have 2 viable starting running backs in the Chargers. It's not like we can't see that happen, 49ers. You can have 2 viable starting running backs that are doing different types of work, and I think that's what's going to happen here.
Well, especially when you look at the way that I wish more offenses would do this, where they would line 2 running backs up in the backfield that can both do a lot of things, but they have a different enough skill set that Austin Eckler can roll out and basically be a slot receiver if they decide they want him to be that. And so I know we broke that down on Monday where we're looking at where Eckler's routes were run out of the backfield. And the idea that, okay, so you've got both of them back there. Now defenses have to figure out who do I have to stop?
Who are we following? Who are we paying attention to? They're not going to totally give it. Do you think the defenses are going to be like, oh, yeah, Melvin Gordon, he didn't have a good first week back after being out of football since 2018.
Right.
So we can just ignore him. And no. And I think this is, you know, Anthony Lynn is a straight shooter. He's great about telling you, updating players who have injuries and basically letting you know truthfully where they are and if they expect to have them or not. And I think he's being very straightforward here. I know we've talked about this, I know Matthew's big on what do you do in the locker room when Eckler's gotten, well, they're not taking him out of the game. I think they're just going to be more creative in terms of how they use him. But I do think Melvin Gordon surprises you this week.
If you had to make a decision,
Which one?
because you had Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler for some reason, maybe you grabbed Melvin Gordon, then you got Eckler as a handcuff in the draft. Which one are you starting this week? If you had to decide, that's a tough one.
I know. I'm probably going to put my money where my mouth is and go with Melvin Gordon.
Okay.
But I would not make that decision. I'd probably start both of them and sit somebody else, to be honest, if I had them both.
Okay. That's big. That's following your bet right there, Stephania.
Yeah. Well, I'd put one in the flex.
Yep.
Because I would, who's my other starter? Because I probably got a pretty good running back if I drafted Melvin Gordon because I got him for.
Yeah, your team
cheap.
is probably Mahomes, CMC, Melvin Gordon, DeAndre Hopkins, OBJ.
Yeah.
Just knowing the way you draft.
Yeah.
You draft real well.
Anything.
So.
I know. Well, I did score over 200 points in one of my leagues.
Oh, I heard that actually. I heard you did that.
It's a 16-team league. I'm not going to brag, but DJ Chark in the 16th round of a 16-team league, that's worked out pretty well.
Is that not bragging? Can I get a ruling on that? Is that bragging? When you say-
100% bragging.
I'm not going to brag, but here's the line. That's like a total Matthew.
Not even,
Everybody knows.
not even humble brag.
No.
Things.
No, I'm stating facts.
Yeah.
I got him in the 16th round
Yeah.
of a 16-team
You've been
league.
hanging out with
I'm not
Matthew
sure
too
what
much.
part.
Not going to brag,
No.
but here's all the reasons
You're
why I was
definitely not
really
hanging out.
smart.
Beth.
Okay, Beth, you're hanging out. That's fair.
All right.
49ers
to
running
the
backs.
next topic.
Yeah, this one's one that's near and dear to your heart because, man, did they look fantastic. I want to know
You think
this.
so, Keith? They really did.
They looked amazing.
They really like Tevin
nothing
Coleman
to
looked
say.
I love being able to see him run the way he did because he looked good. My question is, and I know that listen,
I'm a homer.
I don't want to say that,
I
but
admit it.
I will say
fully
that.
admit it.
How much of that is they look good and that's just what they are, and the Cleveland rush defense is really bad? Do those have to be mutually exclusive?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my text room was going then because I was communicating with my brother was freaking out. He was so happy. I was texting with Melissa Jacobs, a football girl who is a fellow 49er fan, and she was begging me to get on a plane that morning actually to go to the game. And I mean, this is like and it was so great. There's a couple things that we have. We have a pass rush.
Yeah.
That was amazing to see.
Looks
It
good.
was really fun to watch. But we also have this zone. We were talking about this zone blocking. I feel like Kyle Shanahan is seeing his vision being executed finally.
Yeah.
He's got the personnel to do it. Everyone's healthy enough for him to do it. And this is what they've been hoping to get to. And it's finally actually taking shape. We didn't know how Tevin Coleman was going to look coming off the high ankle sprain. Been 4 weeks. But they had felt very good about what he was doing in practice during the course of the bye week. And they didn't overuse him, and they didn't have to. It's the strength of having a couple running backs who can carry the workload. But when he was out there, he looked fresh. And I think his familiarity with Shanahan from their time together before has paid off because we only saw him barely in week 1. So we haven't seen him run this offense.
Yeah.
And then we saw it, and he looked fantastic. And then Matt Breida is just so skilled in multiple ways. And both of these guys had this burst through the line that was really impressive. So I think this is another team where you have 2 running backs who can have legit value. I'm going to give you a couple stats that I think are very exciting.
I will decide if
from
they're
this game.
exciting, but
No,
you can
I
give
think
them to
so.
me.
really
I will
think they
decide.
are.
That's fair.
Okay, the running game on Monday night, the running game for the 49ers, 275 yards on 40 carries.
That's
So,
exciting.
yeah, they were definitely running the ball. Like Kyle says here, 54.5%, the run heaviest team in the NFL right now. Obviously, you want to have balance, but it's good to see that their run game is certainly being executed. This is from ESPN Stats and Info.
Okay.
So it's not just things I'm making up. The
You do that
49ers
on this
called
show?
No, but I mean, you might.
The way you
wonder.
preface that makes me wonder now, like, how many other things have you made up? Should we rewind and go back through everything?
I come with hard science. It's usually injury related though, so I'm
Okay.
getting a chance to
Hard science.
bring you the.
That's different than
hard-
soft science. I just want everybody to know.
You come with hard justice sometimes.
That's right.
Daniel.
I don't think I want to go anywhere else with those descriptors. We're just going to move on. The 49ers called the designed run play 40% of the time last year.
Okay.
So did the Rams.
Okay.
This year, the Rams are down to 31%. which is 28th in the NFL. This year, the 49ers are calling a design run play 55% of the time, highest rate by any team through 4 games since the 2010 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow.
And guess who they play this week? The Rams.
Amazing. So now
Yeah,
we get to see
and-
which running game is
And
better.
we know that the Rams' run game has suffered this year. This is
Certainly
like, so I just thought it was interesting. If you look at their play, say what they want, their designed run plays are down, and we have the stats to prove it. I think in Kyle Shanahan's offense, the run game has to be effective in order for the whole offense to work. We don't have the deep threat, fancy rock star wide receivers. We have wide receivers who can be versatile and do different things, but you saw there's a lot of short passing, intermediate passing. And another interesting fact, there have been 7 touchdowns the 49ers have scored this year. Each 7 passing touchdowns, each reception for a touchdown has gone to a different player. George Kittle, that was his first touchdown this year, but they've gone to all these different guys.
I'd like to change that a little bit because as somebody that rosters George Kittle on a handful of teams, I'd love to have more than one from
Well,
him.
I think now that they've spread it around so that everybody, like you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown.
Yeah, there's Jimmy
And
Garoppolo's the Oprah Winfrey of this team.
Now
yes.
it's okay for George Kittle to go ahead and score a bunch more.
Yeah.
I actually think you're going to see him. Look, it's going to be interesting because Juszczyk is out now.
Yeah.
This fullback who is perhaps the best fullback in the league.
I would say easily he should be considered that if he's not, but like he is fantastic not only as a run blocker but everything he can do with the ball in his hands as a pass catcher. I mean, he is something different from a fullback position that no other fullback in the league is.
So I think it's interesting as the 49ers, from my understanding, are not looking to replace him with another fullback because they don't
Interesting.
believe that there's somebody who has that versatility. So they're going to use some of their other offensive skill players.
I don't know. Nick Bawden is pretty good, guys. Detroit Lions fullback.
Explain. You know what?
Okay.
Stop it.
You didn't even know who Nick Bawden is, and he is the best fullback in the league behind. Well, I might be biased. Anyways, keep going.
So I think you're going to see these other guys fill in. You're going to see George Kittle do some things that normally Juszczyk would have done. So anyway, I'm excited. In case you couldn't tell, I'm sorry, Keith, but I'm not very sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. That was impressive and depressing for me.
Yeah. So we're good. And I didn't even talk about the defense.
Nope. No, man, they look
I'm not
fantastic too.
So anyway, do you want to say anything about these 49? I mean, for fantasy purposes, how do you feel?
I love them.
Would you be comfortable starting? Look, Raheem Mostert even got a couple plays, but I said last week that he was going to be the odd man out. He's valuable on special teams. This is really going to be a Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida show, and they're going to dominate the running back workload.
I am all in on Tevin Coleman. I am all in on Matt Breida. I have both of them as a flex play for me. I want to be able to see more because there's enough of a split there that I don't feel like either one has proven themselves as an RB2, and it's still such small sample size with both of them being in there. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play going forward. But I think you could roll either one of them out in your lineup and feel comfortable that you are going to get legitimate fantasy points for
The
that
big question
week.
is, can both of them stay healthy? That will be the big question going forward. And if they can, then I think both of them can be productive going forward in this offense.
Did Kyle Shanahan ever coach for the Washington Redskins? Keith, am I wrong on that?
No, he did.
He did, right?
Yeah.
Not as a head coach.
Not as a head coach, but he was
an
but he was an assistant coach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did the other Sean McVay, the coach of the other team, did he ever coach for the
He may have.
He did.
Yeah, and
He did, as a matter of
maybe
fact.
Matt LaFleur.
Oh, Matt LaFleur also interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
They could bring Joe Gibbs back too.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
He'll have Sundays off soon once
Boy, I
NASCAR's
wish-
over.
This is what the Redskins could look like had they kept any of their good coaches on their roster.
Oh.
All right, let's
not here.
move ahead to huge name, somebody that everybody's been waiting to be able to come back. Tyreek Hill. Obviously, when he is back and fully healthy, you know that he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver almost across the board.
Yeah, we've seen him out there in the shorts and doing a little bit in practice. Andy Reid said on Monday that he's optimistic that Hill will get clearance to fully practice at some point this week.
Okay.
So if that happens, that's like the last final step before you determine that he can take contact and go into a game. I'm not saying or suggesting that he's going to be available this week. I think we don't know the answer to that yet, but what are we? Are we fight? Was he hurt in week 1? Off the top of my head, I can't recall. That. Was it week 1 or 2?
For Tyreek Hill, I believe that he was hurt in week 1. I think he had a couple.
Week 1.
Yeah, he had a couple.
So the example that we gave of like the one comp that we have was Danny Amendola with the 5-week absence before he returned following a posterior sternoclavicular dislocation, which is what Tyreek Hill had.
Yep.
And while these are not, there's no formula for time missed. The Chiefs are executing a very individually tailored plan for Tyreek Hill. The concept of time for the joint to heal, and enough time that the tissue has scarred down so you are not worried about the player absorbing contact. Those things are probably running in a similar time frame. Looks like he feels good.
Yeah.
We saw this thing where he was out dribbling basketballs with both hands, and that may sound silly, but a lot of that movement through your shoulder will move that area at the sternoclavicular joint. So it's testing it a little bit. And I think if we see full practice, we know he's at least very close. So possibly this week, if he gets cleared for full practice, and if not this week, but he's fully practicing, then for sure next week.
I was going to say, if he is out there and playing, is this one of those injuries where he can play at 75% and you would feel comfortable playing him if he's out there? Or, does he need to come back and be 100% for you to feel confident?
Once he's back, like he is just, I'm reinserting him in my lineup. I mean, it's not like a hamstring where you're like,
Yep.
Test it. And obviously, even when you're talking about absorbing contact, you can't replicate game conditions entirely. But there are things they can do where they feel like, hey, this is stable enough. We're not going to worry about it. The last thing they would do is put him out there and be like, ooh, don't jump in the air and land, on your shoulder. Like once they clear him, he's good to go. And that's why they want to be so confident when they do clear him.
For sure. And obviously it was week 1 that he went out, because as soon as he went out, Sammy Watkins had that massive game that just blew up the fantasy.
This is true.
Listen, the fantasy season fries your brain when so many things happen.
I know.
I'll tell you what, though, the Chiefs need him back, but they don't have a reason to rush, because look at, I realize the last 2 games have been down, but they're 4-1. They don't need to go out there and be like, we are in a position where we have to get W's. Like, they're fine. If they have to wait another week, they can wait another week, but they desperately need him, because I think over the last 2 games you've seen they've been missing that guy that Tyreek Hill is in their roster. So
yeah, and they still, they've got the speed and Mecole Hardman. They've got some other receivers that are interesting, but they're going to be without Sammy Watkins most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're without Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes got banged up this game. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is in danger of missing time, but if his ankle is bothering him, that could impact his ability to throw as effectively. We just take it for granted that he could throw every direction, cross his body, down the field. He can heave it down the field. Well, if your left ankle is bothering you when you step into your throws, that can change your trajectory of your throws a little bit. So you need your best receivers out there to support you. It'd be interesting. I also think that I think the Chiefs, you're going to see the run game in the red zone a little bit more. They've been passing like crazy in the red zone.
Have.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Talk to me now.
All right, let's move on. We got 2 more guys we want to talk about here from the rankings. Yep. Somebody that I rostered in quite a few leagues, drafted him knowing that I was going to have to wait, but Chris Herndon coming back this week, going up against the Dallas Cowboys, understanding that Herndon has not been able to practice with the team, has not been out there. Is he somebody that you feel confident, okay, so now he's back and I can just roll him out in my fantasy lineup, don't have to worry about it? Or do you think there's going to be a little bit of easing into action, understanding all the rest of the variables going on with the Jets of, Sam Darnold, who has been cleared, correct?
So, yeah, Sam Darnold has been cleared to return, so that's exciting for the Jets. They're going to get their quarterback back. And if Sam Darnold and Chris Herndon are on the field together, Herndon caught 71.1%. Mike Clay would care about that 0.1%. 71.1% of passes when targeted by Darnold last season at 14.1 yards per catch. Obviously, they have something they can get going there. Both of them are probably going to be a little bit rusty with the time off. We actually don't know for sure that Chris Herndon will play. This first week back, Adam Gase has kind of left it open that he may not play, but he's back practicing. You're the Jets. You got to play him, right?
I think you'd have to. I mean,
he wasn't missing time because of injury.
Nope. And understanding that you just need playmakers on that offense,
right.
And you're hoping that he can come out. I am curious, and you always say this, like players, even if they're not practicing with the team, they can still be practicing. They can still be in good shape. They can still, but it's just different once they get out there. You're going to find out, how good is he going to be from that standpoint, and how much did he stay prepared. So
exactly.
I love Chris Herndon. I mean, long term, rest of season, the idea of a guy that like we watched last year,
become a really valuable tight end,
especially with such a dearth at the tight end position this year.
You said dearth.
Yeah, because it's a really good word. That's right. All right, last one. and I cannot believe we're talking. Why are we talking about Jeff Swaim? What's going on here where we're talking about Jeff Swaim?
You made the note.
Anya?
Yeah, O'Shaughnessy.
Oh, Oshak Hennessy, I believe is his name.
That is correct.
Yeah, Oshak Hennessy.
Key and Peele.
Traditional
One of my
spelling.
favorites.
Yeah. No. Okay. I got it wrong. But poor guy tore his ACL.
Yeah.
He is done for the year. So Jeff Swaim is now the number 1 tight end. And you might mock me, but Jeff Swaim has caught a ball or two from Gardner Minshew. And I think that he's going to end up becoming more valuable than you think. I think that he'll make the top 20. That's why I put him in there. I ranked him 17. Everybody else was outside the top 20. Ye of little faith.
Yeah, seriously. All right. I'll take that bet.
Look,
Nope, we're going to do it. I say Jeff Swaim will not be a top 20 tight end in week 6.
I say Jeff Swaim will be a top 20 tight end in week 6.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the
And
board.
by the way,
Oh my
we just
gosh.
did that to show Mike Clay how it's
I mean,
done.
this is how it works, Mike Clay. I don't know what your problem is, man.
He really has an issue. And now we're in his head. So now he
I know,
cannot
yeah.
possibly ever execute a board bet.
Oh, that's so good. Stephania,
You would think he would have learned something about that in prison.
you would think, well, it's hard. That's the thing, though. It's tough. It's not always easy. Talk to me about ZipRecruiter, Stephania Bell.
I will. Hiring can be a slow process. Cafe Altura's COO, Dylan Miskowitz, needed to hire a director of coffee for his organic coffee company, but he was having trouble finding qualified applicants. So he switched to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them for you. Its technology identifies people with the right experience and invites them to apply to your job, so you get qualified candidates fast. Dylan posted his job on ZipRecruiter and said he was impressed by how quickly he had great candidates apply. He also used ZipRecruiter's candidate rating feature to filter his applicants so he could focus on the most relevant ones. And that's how Dylan found his new director of coffee in just a few days.
A few days?
A few days.
Oh, my gosh.
With results like that, it's no wonder 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See why ZipRecruiter is effective for businesses of all sizes. Try ZipRecruiter for free.
Wait, how much?
For free.
For free?
For free. At our web address, ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
All right, Stephania, we are going to take a quick break right now.
I need one.
For those of you that are watching the video stream, Matthew Berry is going to teach you how to use handcuffs.
What?
Let's
That's
talk
exciting.
handcuffs. Running backs that you probably do not want in your lineup in week 6, but that you should seriously consider adding to your roster as insurance. And for me, it starts with Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals. Look, if you have David Johnson on your team, you got to get Chase Edmonds. Edmonds had 17.6 fantasy points on Sunday, 1 fewer than Johnson put up on 9 fewer touches. He's not David Johnson, obviously, but he's a talented running back. And if David Johnson is out with an injury this Sunday, as head coach Cliff Kingsbury said he might be as of this taping, Edmonds is not only the top handcuff ad, he instantly becomes the best waiver wire running back to plug into your week 6 lineup, as well ahead of Adrian Peterson. As for another handcuff that stands out, how about Alexander Madison? Has some value now as a fringe flex play in much deeper leagues, but definitely the guy that will get a lot of value if something were to happen to Dalvin Cook, who obviously has had injury issues throughout his NFL career. There's some other guys right there. As you see, Malcolm Brown, he's the handcuff to Todd Gurley. Ty Montgomery, remember, Le'Veon Bell has not played all 16 games except once in an NFL career. And Darrell Williams, who's productive filling in for Damian, with LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams both having long injury histories in their careers in the NFL. Darrell Williams is somebody that should remain rostered or somebody to pick up if you're banking on production from the Chiefs back.
Cool Keith, not cool Keith, not cool Keith. Lift some rocks.
All right, Keith.
Yeah, Lipscomb rocks. See, Cleveland doesn't quite rock right now.
No, wow.
But
That's
Lipscomb
a low blow.
They're rocky.
They're
Yeah,
rocky.
yeah.
Very, very rocky.
Let's get a couple
they're questionable.
social questions. If you guys are watching us or ever you want to get a question in, obviously we are live on Twitter, live on YouTube, live on the ESPN Fantasy Facebook page, and in the ESPN app. Sending questions anywhere of those platforms. Keith, what do we got for today?
Got a bunch today. Brian wants to know concerns about the foot issue lingering for Mark Andrews.
Ooh.
It's a good question. I sort of would qualify it as already lingering. I mean, I think part of the reason that it's hard for him to get to 100% is because there are games every week. So I don't know that this will be something that totally resolves within the season. In fact, they had lowered Andrew's practice level up until last week, I think was the first time that he got a full practice in on a Friday going into the week. So when's Baltimore have a bye? That might be a good time for them to,
Boy, you're hoping it comes sooner rather than later for him, because that would be fantastic to be able to give him just a week to get back to 100%, because when Mark Andrews is good, it's in week 8.
Kyle's holding up fingers.
Yeah, that's a weird way to do.
I know. Like,
what is this?
What is that? I was like, it's like,
yeah,
it's like this.
Three
right?
fingers
Isn't that
too
how
close.
you
I
say
thought it was going to be hard to see
Week
from
8?
here.
Oh my
This was going to be
gosh.
easier.
Yeah.
We're looking through a glass. There's already a glare.
Yeah.
I think you should hold up flashcards.
At least you didn't say week 53. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
Or 35, if you're reading it from our side.
Corey wants to know, are there any health issues that would stand in the way of Michael Gallup being a wide receiver 2 the rest of the way?
Oh, my
He
gosh.
definitely looked good last week.
I want
He did.
Michael Gallup to look
me,
good.
that was the test, right? That
Yeah.
was the first week coming off surgery, and he was super productive. I was a little nervous because you never know. Guy's just coming off arthroscopic surgery. In fact, the range of time for him to miss, like the window could have been longer. And it was only because he looked so good, felt so good in practice that they allowed him to do a little more. And then he came back in. I thought, well, are they really going to go to him much? And he looked amazing.
He looked amazing, and he's somebody that, like, we've seen the talent that he's had, and especially opposite of Amari Cooper with the way that Dak Prescott is throwing this year. Obviously, he had a couple INTs last week, but I mean, I love the upside of Michael Gallup for the rest of the season, and I'm stoked to be able to see what it is that he can put together with this offense.
Anthony wants to know, and a lot of people have done this, so is AJ Green going to be worth the wait whenever he does return?
The $1 million question, right? I mean, I feel like, how do you answer that? Because
Words.
we don't know.
You use words to answer it.
I think you are being what we call a smart
Alec.
If we'd like to stay employed.
My mom is watching, Stephania, all right? She
And
will find you
because
25 cents
I
a
love
letter.
Your mom, that is what we are calling you. But you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. Read between the lines.
And she is watching, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, she
I
has
love
chimed
her.
in on the chat.
Oh, awesome. Here's the thing. We said all along that, or I have said all along, that I wasn't only worried about when he would come back, but how he would be after he comes back.
Yep.
The longer he's out, the more concerning it gets. I saw some video of him working on the side, though, the other day. That was unbelievable. Like working with a sled, just pounding, running, super hard. More aggressive work than I probably realized he was doing at this stage, which made me feel really good.
Good.
But I still think it's delicate. This is a joint issue. We don't know how it's going to behave. The Bengals offense, they probably are dying to get him back in the mix, but I don't know that the rest of the offense supports him coming back anytime soon.
I mean, I think he'll at least be starter relevant. I mean, he'll be a flex play at the least, hopefully a wide receiver 2. I think the wide receiver 1 days are probably gone from that standpoint, and not just because of him, but in part because of that offense and Andy Dalton. But the idea that you can roll him out there, do I think it'll be worth the wait? I mean, with all the guys that have been getting hurt.
If you've held on to him this long, like, what's a couple more weeks?
I'd rather have him than Emmanuel Sanders. I'll tell you that much right now.
That's a heck of a segue right there.
Oh, is that a segue? Did I just segue?
It works out pretty well here.
Oh, yeah.
Kay wants to know, can Emmanuel Sanders remain a wide receiver 2 rest of the season? Now, I would argue that maybe he isn't a wide receiver 2 in the first place.
Yeah, right now he's not.
Kyle has said that he is 23rd currently in fantasy points.
We were so excited about him, too, after he looked so good a couple times, right at the start of the season and late in the preseason.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for me looking at, what that Broncos offense is and knowing
that Broncos offense?
It's Phillip Lindsay and running the football and some, Cortland Sutton's coming on a little bit. So we like seeing that. The idea that Joe Flacco is going to be able to spread around to have 2 fantasy viable wide receivers is not something that instills a lot of confidence in me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you think Joe Flacco's elite and I'm just the only one that doesn't. But I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain wide receiver 2 rest of the season.
I will say this. I just went back, and I'm going to pull Matthew. I just went back and
let's talk about some player we talked about 15 minutes ago.
That's right. Because the people want to know, and I want to do the work for the people.
Do they? Okay.
AJ Green, the bye for the Bengals comes in week 9, which I think given...
That's week 9.
Good,
how you do
Daniel,
it.
that you learned to count on your
Yeah.
fingers. So good. Now Kyle puts like
Just a
skinny
sign with a
marker
really skinny
on a piece
line.
of
Again,
white paper that I still can't see.
He wrote it in with
It's
like,
called a Sharpie.
that's so terrible.
And that's
Kyle.
I need like a flashcard, like an index card with it.
Still can't see it.
No,
Still not.
no.
Show it to the camera, Kyle.
Like-
He's holding up like you can't even see it on the camera. Oh my
It
gosh.
looks like a blank
It's
piece
so
of paper.
bad.
Your wife to be is a school teacher, is she not?
She is.
She is. She took all the
Have her help
Sharpies.
you with
She
like,
took all the Sharpies.
have
That was
her
quick.
help you with like paper, construction paper.
Well,
that
see,
you use
I
that
was
with
going
kids
with the
and, like,
fingers,
big
but that
markers.
just wasn't getting positive feedback
No,
either.
yeah, that's
so.
accurate.
Okay. Anyway, I think if I'm guessing here, I'm just spitballing because basically we haven't been given a time frame on AJ Green, but just from like the little work that I saw him doing, I think, well, you know what? Why would you bring him back before the bye? Unless sometimes they like to roll him out the week before a bye because they know there'll be an extra week off.
Yep.
But I don't think so. I think that you're looking at week 10 is the soonest. So it depends on if you want to wait that long.
Okay.
Tony is inquiring about the trade value of the Monday Night Football running backs this week.
Oh, okay.
Wants to know, is Kerryon Johnson more of a buy low or is Aaron Jones more of a sell high? That's a tough question.
It's tough because I think Kerryon would have been more of a buy low before the last game that he had. Now, obviously, coming off a bye, sometimes people you forget that recency bias of seeing a guy. But I think that Lions running game is getting more on track as they have sort of figured out who they are. Not saying that he's going to be a top 7 running back, but they want to be able to utilize Kerryon Johnson. I mean, they no longer have C.J. Anderson. J.D. McKissick is a guy they're basically only using as a pass catcher out of the backfield. That's one area that Kerryon still is not being utilized as much as we would like to see him, but I think that's going to increase as the season rolls on. And I'll tell you what, as that offense gets better and gets in the end zone, it's going to give him more opportunities to be able to have rushing touchdowns, which I think is going to be huge. I personally would rather have Kerryon Johnson the rest of the way than Aaron Jones.
I think we don't know what Aaron Jones is going to be. We've seen one game where we were like, that's the Aaron Jones we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and in that same game, Trey Carson got 20 snaps. Like, what's going on there? Like, why? I don't understand. Aaron Jones is so much better than Trey Carson. Like, what's the deal?
Well, he probably needed to breathe occasionally.
Oh my gosh.
I just don't know that I might be a sell high on Aaron Jones because I'm not convinced
4
that
touchdowns.
what we saw is sustainable
100%.
in that offense. So I'd sell high on Aaron Jones.
Mark wants to know, would you prefer Gardner Minshew over Baker Mayfield the rest of the way?
Yes.
100%.
100%.
That's not even a question.
Until I
Actually, it is a question. It's from Mark.
Mark. That was so
okay,
good.
Smarty pants.
I will
Am I
say,
defensive about my team's quarterback?
Yeah.
that's my quarterback.
That's right. No, look, because first of all, look, I am not one of those who's saying like Baker Mayfield, like there's no chance.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm going to say
I
for
don't-
both of us, Baker Mayfield could turn it on at any moment, and if that offense gets clicking, we could change this statement right now. But
yeah,
way
but
he's been playing,
right, and I don't think it's if it was gonna flip that easily, that would have happened. I don't see that happening right now. I would go with a hot hand, Gardner Minshew. He's shown that he can find where he is going to make Jeff Swaim a top 20 tight end this
Wow.
I think you can stop
and
it
DJ
right there.
Chark,
Yep.
he was in my lineup where I got over 200 points.
DJ Chark is really good.
Yeah, much better than DJ Shark.
Yeah.
Cozy wants to know, is the time now to get in on Stephon Diggs, or should I not look for that headache?
No.
I'm going to disagree with Stephania here.
Oh,
I think he's a fantastic buy low candidate for somebody that you also are not. I mean, you are not selling somebody that is a fantasy viable
are you starting
starter.
him right away?
Nope. But he's a guy that I would absolutely trade for to try and have
What
him on my
would you
bench.
trade for him?
I would trade a handcuff for a running back that is on that player's roster. I think that I would look at trying to get somebody else that is maybe a high upside guy or a guy that has overperformed, in my opinion, that I would be able to get Stephon Diggs for, because if by any chance he gets traded, I have to think that he would have more fantasy relevance than what he's had in Minnesota. And on top of that, it is a long season.
But that's not happening during the season.
Well, wait, him being traded?
Yeah.
Trades have happened in the season before?
I know, but do we really think that's
I think that
You
Stephon
really
Diggs.
think that that's going to happen?
I don't think that he's going to be where he is right now for the entirety of the season. He is too valuable to not in Minnesota. I mean, like he will not be the fantasy.
I thought maybe you had some insight.
No. He will not. I'm not Phil Yates. I don't have a scoop hat on. I do not believe that he will be as bad as he has been.
But you're saying Matthew's share, so you might just make it up.
I could just make it up. I am in. If you can buy low and not give back something that is of great value to you, the upside of him. I hate to say this, but he's like the O.J. Howard of tight ends right now. Like O.J. Howard's upside is so much more.
I know,
than
but when are you going to roll him out?
Never. He's going to sit on my bench until he finally does something, and then I will roll him out there. So I'm not trading him for a starter. I'm trading him for a backup that could potentially help someone else's team. Like I said, either for a handcuff or a bye week, or they have to get a win.
Yeah, it's got to be something that makes me feel like it wasn't costing me much.
Agreed. 100% agree with that.
One difference between O.J. Howard and Stephon Diggs, though, is that Stephon Diggs did not catch a foul ball at a Twins game.
I saw that. Man.
So
That was O.J. Howard.
I'm not sure how that affects your fantasy outlook, but just,
That's so good. One-handed. Yeah.
I know. I think he was trying to show his team, like, look what I can do.
Yo, guys.
Well, he was on his,
Forget about me.
well, he was on his phone the
still
rest of the
here.
game, so I'm sure the first text he sent to, was to the
Yeah.
coaching staff,
Yeah.
like, hey, here I
How
am.
much is he loving? Like, that's all over.
So
It's
good.
like, yeah. By the way, this skill set available on Sundays.
Right?
Every week.
Also, can you believe they're still playing baseball? Man, how long is that sport? Jeez.
I don't know. My team's not in it. I'm
Mine
focused on
neither.
the Niners.
Rylan wants to know, Damian Williams or Sony Michel rest of season? Non-PPR is the key here.
Ooh, non-PPR. Sony Michel. Go ahead. Be different. Whatevs.
I'm thinking about the potency of both of these offenses,
Potency.
but I don't believe that James White is a guy that is going to take away goal line work from him. Rex Burkhead maybe, but I think they want to get him rolling. But they also
They want to get Sony. They made a point. They have been very adamant. And unlike most teams, when they're like, this is what we want to do, when the Patriots say this is what they want to do, they actually usually go out and do it.
Yeah, and you know what? Sony Michel is just a better running back than Damian Williams. He just is.
Yeah. And I think look, I was worried about his health because he's had the chronic issues with his knee. But I don't know that he's been doing enough that I'm not worried about that right now. I'm more worried about him just getting going. Non-PPR, yes.
Yeah, they're both in a big running back by committee, but I agree. I would take Sony Michel over Damian Williams.
I would agree. Last question here from Eric.
Okay.
Papa Shoop.
Papa Shoop. What's up, Papa?
Best streaming defenses this week. There's a lot of them here, and I'll give you a list of.
Here's one. The Patriots on Thursday night.
Yeah, because they're available in so many leagues.
Well, it's worth a shot.
I will give you some that are available in fewer than 50% of leagues, because there's actually a lot of attractive ones, especially depending on who they play this week.
Okay.
The Ravens are actually available in 55% of leagues. They play the Bengals.
Oh.
Bengals.
Yeah.
Bengals have allowed the ninth among teams as far as
If you
opponents.
watched a Bengals
DST.
game, you don't need a stat. You just know that the Ravens are playing the Bengals.
You just shut me down right there.
No. But no, it's lovely that you had a stat. But I'm just saying, if you've watched the offense struggle, and and they will continue to struggle, I believe.
Are the Cowboys also on this list, Keith?
Yes, they're available in 62% of leagues.
Taking on the New York Football Jets.
And the Jets have allowed the most points to DSTs this year, 18.25 per game.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Now, of course,
Patriots have a lot to do with that.
they have, and there also hasn't been Sam Darnold.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
But the Niners are
Cowboys.
available, and they don't face a team that's been as beneficial to DSTs. But the Niners are number 2 in scoring for DSTs, and they're also number 2 in Tristan's consistency ratings as well.
Oh, snap. But they've been forcing some turnovers. So I like, in defenses, I like to look for teams that are going to have points that aren't going to be taken away from you, so it's not just points against. I'm looking for people who can score pick sixes, make turnovers, get sacks.
I think
I think my Niners are doing all of those
the Niners.
things.
I agree. The only reason why I don't like the Niners more than I like the Cowboys or
they're
the
playing the
Ravens
Rams.
is just because of the Rams,
Yeah.
just because of the matchup. They're on the road. The idea that the Ravens playing at home against Cincy.
I know, but okay, on the
divisional
road,
games.
like it's a 1 hour flight to LA.
Oh, my
Stop
gosh.
it. It's
Okay.
not like a big deal. And the Rams and the Niners always play each other.
Yeah,
tough.
but the
So-
Niners are traveling on a short week, which we all know is a big thing.
I know, especially when you get on that, you hop that jet to LA.
Yeah.
that chartered jet in the same time zone for a 45-minute flight.
They're taking a team van like in college.
That's what it is.
Just gonna
Yeah.
hop in a van together.
Am I playing Papa Shoop in the league this week? Because if I am, I'm not going to answer this question. I'm not going to give him a defense to be able in the Genius Commentary League.
You already did answer it.
I think I would go with the Cowboys here against the Jets.
I do have a couple more to throw at you.
Yeah, bring
Okay.
it.
Seahawks play the Browns. Seahawks available in 70% of leagues. Browns have been pretty turnover heavy,
They
let's
have.
just say, and Baker's taken his share of sacks. And then also, this is if you're in a real deep league where people actually roster 2 defenses and such.
Washington.
Washington and Miami.
Yeah.
Both of which they're number 2 and 3 in points allowed to DSTs. Which one wins? Like something has to give.
If they end in a 0-0 tie, you still get 10
you get
points because you
negative
didn't
points?
get. Well, they'd find a way to still get negative points somehow. I don't know how they would do it.
I guess the point is there are actually a lot of defenses to stream this week. So look at your wire and see.
What is that game gonna look like?
Washington and Miami.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know.
It might look like this show.
Yeah. Oh. Wow. What, Keith?
Hey man,
Excellent.
this is the most
that
I've
what you're
talked in a show. I think it tells you everything we need to know.
Yeah, it's the best show that we've had all year long. It's fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with Stephania and I. We are really sorry that Prison Mike and Mr. Field G8s could not be here, but we had a ton of fun hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, we did.
I like this.
I know.
This will be fun next time.
We'll give them more days off.
Yes, we will.
Unless you tell us not to.
All right, make sure that you check us out, like I said, on Twitter, on YouTube, on the ESPN Fantasy Facebook page, and in the ESPN app if you want to watch us or continue to download us where you get your podcasts.
Yeah. Who are you on Twitter?
I am at Daniel Dopp. Who are you?
At Stephania_ESPN.
This has been fantastic. All right, guys. Have a great Wednesday.
See ya.
Peace out.
It's no secret, not a mystery. The one that we depend on for all our podcast needs. Graduate, full sell you, Alliance fan through and through. With the hippest beard, I'm telling you.